When starting to learn a language, and I'll use Chinese for all these examples, Mandarin Chinese, because that's the language that I've studied to the highest level, a lot of people wonder if they should focus in on a particular accent. So for Mandarin Chinese, it's considered that the standard accent is like a Beijing pronunciation, Beijing kind of, not dialect, but accent. So a lot of people might wonder, what accent should they focus on? Because certain words are pronounced in different ways, and also just like how American English and English in the UK or Australia sound different. The word choice, or it's completely, you're able to communicate with someone from the UK, you're able to communicate with someone from Australia, but the way they say things is different. I know a lot of school systems around the world focus on different versions of English, actually. I know certain places, like maybe in Latin America, they focus on American pronunciation, and I think many countries around the world focus on the UK's pronunciation, just as a vestige of, the UK's power from maybe 100 or so years ago. So, with Chinese, it actually, my opinion is that it doesn't matter very much. If you want to study the Beijing accent, go ahead. If you want to study just from anywhere, go ahead. And my personal experience is that I studied abroad in Taiwan for 9 months in Taipei. And, well, first things first, in high school, the teacher would focus on, I guess, a Beijing type of pronunciation. So people who have studied Chinese know about Erhuaying. It's like kind of, instead of saying, yihui, you would say yihuar. Like you would add a R sound at the ending. And that's a very typical northern Chinese way to pronounce things. So that's how I started learning, because we were focused on the standardized Beijing pronunciation. And I learned Chinese with those types of accents all the way until I studied abroad. And when I studied abroad, it was kind of hard for me to understand a little bit at the beginning, because the way people talked was not the exact same way I had learned it. Because Taiwanese pronunciation, on the other hand, they get rid of some of the nasally sounds, maybe you would call it. I don't know if it's actually nasally. But for example, the pinyin, that would be ZI in Mandarin, and ZHI in Mandarin, like mainland. So the difference would be like z, versus zh, z, zh. You see how they're quite different? But the sound doesn't exist as much in Taiwanese pronunciation. And also just southern China, like in Fujian province, because it's right across from the island of Taiwan. So the way they pronounce things is quite different. So basically, I started to develop what was closer to a Taiwanese accent, but I was kind of discombobulated, because some words I might say more like a standardized northern mainland accent, and then some of the words I might have said more in a Taiwanese style, so it just kind of sounded mismatched. And then later, when I left Taiwan, my girlfriend at that time, now she's my wife, is from mainland China. So basically, she started to influence me as well. And which is not even exact, well, she speaks pretty standardized Mandarin Chinese from mainland. But basically what I'm trying to say is my accent was kind of all over the place to a certain degree. I didn't really have one accent, and I think that's completely okay as a non-native speaker. I think it's okay if you don't have a certain accent. As long as people understand you, that's good enough. And the reason for that is that you're mostly trying to focus on communicating yourself and to make communication easier between you and the person you're talking to. And someone like me speaking Chinese, they're going to look and they know that I'm not a native speaker. So I don't need to necessarily speak it with an accent from a certain place. I'm not pretending like I was born and raised in Beijing or anything. They know I'm a non-native speaker, and if I'm able to communicate and they're able to understand, that's good enough. So anyone who's starting to learn Chinese or a different language, like I think Arabic, this considered the standardized pronunciation is Egyptian Arabic, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe someone who speaks Jordanian Arabic would have a very different accent or use certain words. Word choices might be different. But as long as they're able to communicate with each other, I don't think it's a big deal which one you're going to go ahead and choose to learn. And I would maybe recommend, if anything, just go ahead and learn whatever is considered the standard pronunciation. And the reason for that is there's going to be more resources for you to reference when you're trying to learn the language. Because if it's considered the standard pronunciation, then a lot of content will all be using that pronunciation and that accent, and you can get the most exposure. So I wouldn't say force yourself to switch your pronunciation. Just use whatever resources you come across, and if you have kind of a mixed accent, it's not going to be the end of the world, because people understand you, and that's all that really matters.